Good morning. I know, don't adjust your cameras, people. I know it's been a while, but welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. Like I said, obviously last week, we were going to get into our new rotation, our new distribution of content. Obviously, if you guys have been peeping our Twitter every day, we've been giving you guys some plays from Monday all the way until yesterday. And obviously, our Twitter down below, AKP Sports Talk. You can find all of our daily plays, all of our daily cards posted once again. So don't forget, as we get into these weeks, where there's not much only but college basketball. We're only going to be, just posting our daily plays. So make sure to peep those on AKP Sports Talk. That is our Twitter down below. But Ari, first off, obviously, big weekend. We got some great games, a lot of great storylines in terms of the NFL Divisional Round. College basketball, a huge Saturday slate once again coming at you. How you doing so far on this Friday morning?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Can't complain. Like you said, a lot of, great NFL games to look forward to this weekend. Another weekend of college basketball. So obviously, as a sports bettor, you can't complain about how much action we'll have, both Saturday, well, today, and then Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, obviously, great weekend ahead. As you mentioned, we have four great games in the NFL, which I think are going to be, very star-studded. A lot of storylines going on there. Me personally, I'm going to do a quick recap of how I did yesterday. My two plays were Utah minus 14 and a half on Twitter. And I also gave out New Mexico State minus 1.5. Those were about minus 130, minus 125. That's a good sweep, 2-0 for me. Just a quick recap for me. New Mexico State, that was the most legacy comeback I have ever seen in my life. This team was down by 17 at home. I thought the bet was caked. I turned the game off. All of a sudden I see it's like a 69-66 ball game with like 2 seconds with a minute half left, and I get tuned back in, and all of a sudden New Mexico State, they hit a game-winning layup to not only cover the 1.5 point spread, but obviously they didn't miss the free throw, so it was a little bit sweaty, but they did get the game-winning stop as well. So New Mexico State won by 2, obviously cashing that minus 1.5, and then Utah State minus 14.5. That was free. That was so free. I didn't even check the score in the second half because I saw they were up by 30. Oregon State's bad, and Utah State, one of the better teams at home. They're going to be a home wagon for us, especially in the Pac-12. They've beat on good teams at home, and they've beat on bad teams at home, and especially by their spread. So, that was a great 2-0 day for me. But now we're going to get into this weekend. We have a full card of through this weekend. But first, obviously, just another Friday night college basketball game for me, and I'm taking Colorado State minus 6.5 at home against UNLV. Look, I'm just liking this team at home. I'm backing this team at home, on a very small slate. I like this Colorado State team. They had a little bit of a rough game, in their last go around. They really didn't shoot the ball well. It took them an overtime win to beat Air Force, and it was just a really bad shooting day. So I think they bounce back in the spot, cover the spread. Everyone, like I said, everyone's gonna have their bad shooting day. It's college, it's natural. Everyone can't shoot the ball, 100% every day, because that's just not how it works. And Isaiah Stevens, their lead guy, only 4 for 12, 3 for 4 from the field, just 3 for 4 from the line. So it's just a tough day shooting, and that happens in college basketball. But now they're playing this UNLV team who, honestly, UNLV, they don't have the defense, they don't get that many steals, and they're going to get out rebounded, and that gives Colorado State so many opportunities because they thrive off of the second chances and second chance threes, and that's how they get their offense moving, especially in the first half. I'm taking their full game spread at minus 6.5. I know that line has gone up to, I think, 7 or 7.5. I'd still take it there, but I saw it at minus 6.5 yesterday. I think this is just a great line for them. I think this Colorado State team at home is one of the best, especially in the Mountain West. And, they play a UNLV team who has given, some teams a scare, but that's mostly on their home court. And, they're going to Colorado State, and, they came off of a bad game, where they could barely beat Air Force. They were down most of that game. They had to crawl back in that just to save it. But, this is a great bounce back spot for them. So I'm taking them to minus 6.5 tonight as my favorite play of this evening tonight on Friday. But obviously, we know why you're here. Saturday, obviously, we have a full weekend of NFL. We have 4 games. I'm only choosing 3 because that fourth one is scaring me a little bit. And there's a team that there are 2 teams, me personally, that I just cannot see myself rooting for. So we're gonna go to the first game, the more exciting game out of the AFC. And Ari, I know we literally just talked about how you're on the other side. I'm on the Ravens to cover the first half spread -6.5. I think this was about -112. I don't know where that line is right now on DraftKings. I saw it at -112 earlier in the week. Look, I feel like the Ravens, in this kind of bad weather game, I've been hearing it's going to be cold, windy, not the greatest weather temperature wise. And, it's just kind of, that kind of typical AFC East, AFC North kind of weather game, in the playoffs. I kind of like the back the home team, in this spot just to get out to a first half lead. And kind of set the tone because, the thing with Baltimore, when it comes to the playoffs is that they are a little scary. We've seen, team after team, whether it was the Tennessee Titans on their miracle year, when Derrick Henry kind of literally ran through them in the playoffs and Tennessee upset the Ravens, or, just many times where we've seen the Ravens get a bye and, they kind of, take a little bit time off and they don't, really get themselves right. I'm concerned is that, we haven't really seen the true Ravens, since their game against the 49ers, because obviously, the last week they did most of in fact, all their starters, didn't play. And then obviously they had another week off because of the bye. So, the one concern is that, we haven't seen this Ravens team, this true Ravens team in a long time, but I'm just backing this home team, to get out to a first half lead and to kind of establish the tone. I don't think the Ravens cover the full game spread. I think, honestly, I do lean the Texans to cover the full game spread. I think it's a +9.5. I'm just taking the Ravens in the first half. I think the Ravens just get out to a good lead. That's kind of how they've been going, throughout the season, getting out to a big lead at home and kind of establishing the tone. But obviously, the Texans, this is a big playoff game, so I expect the Texans to make some big second half adjustments. Maybe lean on the run game a lot more, considering, we talk about how the Baltimore Ravens defense, especially at home, is one of the scariest defenses in the league. Obviously, the big question this week for the Ravens was whether or not they're going to have Mark Andrews back, and he has officially been ruled out. So that is a big loss. But at the same time, this Ravens team has been playing without him almost all season. And, we've seen Lamar Jackson use it with his legs and obviously do it in the air with Zay Flowers emerging as their star receiver, and, Isaiah Likely becoming what Mark Andrews, was going to be all season, that tight end dependent, who can run upfield. So I'm just taking the Ravens in the first half. I think this is going to be an exciting game, a lot of defensive adjustments in terms of the ball, because, we know how prolific the Texans offense is with CJ Stroud and, all those guys. But I'm just taking the Ravens in the first half. I do lean the Texans the full game to cover at +9.5, but I like the Ravens in the first half at -6.5. And then, Ari, I'm gonna paint you a story for this next game right here. It's 32. It's 33-30, right? About 27 seconds left on the clock. The Chiefs are at their own 35, right? Their own 35. All they need is to get into field goal range, right? I already can see it happening. Travis Kelce catches something over the middle, goes up the field for 15. Take a timeout right there. They find Rashee Rice on the corner for on a 10-yard out route. They get in field goal range, get the game tying field goal. Now it's in overtime. And remember, we talk about this overtime rule with a certain quarterback complaining all the time. But now that there's a certain rule change, I think this is going to come back to bite him. And I just can see it, right? I can see it. This is an I can see it bet. So don't take it with any like seriousness. But honestly, I do think the Chiefs do get this win. We talk about this rivalry, right? The Bills and the Chiefs. We saw the Bills come out guns blazing, get the win at home against a good Steelers team. But at the same time, the Steelers team was one of the luckiest teams in football. And I can't buy them beating the Steelers team, who honestly kept it a little competitive, but it was obviously all Bills all game. I can't really buy them to keep this game close against the Chiefs, who obviously have had their number. And, if it wasn't for Kadarius Toney lining up offsides, this game would probably, this game may be at Arrowhead. And obviously that line would be going the other way. And so you're getting the Chiefs as huge dogs here. Look, and obviously the only reason is because this is Mahomes' first true road game in the playoffs, obviously, with obviously having home field advantage almost every single season for the Kansas City Chiefs. But, I just like them in this spot. I feel like this, I've seen the referees, if you're into those referee trend bets, John Hockey is going to be refereeing this game. I think he's 2-0 straight up when the refereeing the Chiefs and the Chiefs cover that. I've just seen so many trends toward the Chiefs. I feel like Bills are the popular favorite just because they're at home and this is the revenge spot for them. And it's definitely a great lean, but I just feel like the Chiefs, are going to find some way, somehow, some miracle. Unfortunately, we're going to see Kelsey and Swift in the championship game, and I'm sick to my stomach thinking about it. But it's just going to happen. I feel like there's some way, somehow, we're going to be talking about how this is going to be a legacy game, because I think this is going to be one of the greatest games of the divisional round. Obviously, we talk about the Bills and Chiefs in the divisional round, the Bills being the Super Bowl media champs every season. They get hyped up by the media, and then they fell out in the second round of the divisional round to their dads, which are the Chiefs. And I think it's going to happen again. So I like the Chiefs money line straight up. I think this is just going to be, one of those games where you look back on and you're like, wow, that was one of the greatest games I've ever watched. Especially now this is at Buffalo, so this is a true road environment. And obviously, the one thing about the Bills is they do have some injuries. I know Gabe Davis is out. I think Taylor Rapp is out as well. Some key offensive and defensive injuries again. And, not a lot of people are talking about, the amount of injuries the Bills will have, coming into this game. So I like the Chiefs money line at plus 142. That line did grow a little bit, but, I just think the Chiefs somehow win this game, even with all the injuries for the Bills and all that. I'm taking the Chiefs money line. And then the last game, finally in the NFC, in the Bucks Lions, who would have thought the Bucks and Lions would be playing a divisional round playoff game, huh? Well, here it is, people, especially in Detroit too. That sounds like a 10 a.m. Sunday game where nobody's watching. But I'm going to take the Lions here minus 6.5 at home. Look, I love this Baker Mayfield story as much as everyone does, and how he's really turned around that Buccaneers program after everyone kind of expected them to be a huge fall off after obviously Tom Brady retired and a bunch of that O-line was gone and missing, and everyone had a question about Todd Bowles and his play calling after the Bucs went 9-8 last year, and then or was it 8-9 last year, and obviously 9-8 this year, and now they got a playoff win at home against a struggling Eagles team. Now you got to go to Detroit, and I've seen the ripping on both sides with I believe it was CJ Gardner Johnson and Baker, talking to each other, and I'm not paying attention to that. I think the Lions just get the job done at home. I do like the over as well in this game, but I just think the Lions get the job done. We talk about the Lions pass rush, kind of what they've leaned on, and we've seen Baker take some bad sacks sometimes, and especially with an O-line that has not protected him great. But they do just enough, especially last week when they were doing pretty much just enough, to get that offense moving against a struggling Eagles team. But I like the Lions in this spot at home. I think they get the job done. Even though the Bucs have one of the best run defenses, obviously, and their defense has been playing really well. Obviously, they got to play a really, really hot Lions offense. Obviously, even though they barely came off a win against the Rams, that was one of the best Rams, teams that we've seen. That was close to their Super Bowl team in terms of the talent offensively with Stafford and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and Kyron Williams, and then defensively, the guy named Aaron Donald, and they beat him, and obviously beating them at home, that was a big win for them. And I think that momentum continues into this week, taking the Lions minus 6.5 at home. So my 3 picks, the Ravens first half minus 6, just taking the home team to get out to a first half lead. I'm taking the Chiefs money line and what will be some kind of, whether it's controversy or, the media is going to be talking about that game on Monday. And then the Lions minus 6.5. I think the Lions could get the job done at home. I think, especially in this spot for the Lions, they just had their first playoff win at home. And, that was obviously the big hurdle, was to overcome the narrative of, Matthew Stafford potentially coming in, beating them and all that nonsense. But they overcame all that pressure. And I think now they don't have to worry so much. I think they can just, play Lions football and get the job done. I like them minus 6.5 at home against the Bucs in that divisional matchup. But Ari, I will finally stop yapping. I'll let you go. What have you cooked up for this weekend?
Yeah, so I have plays in the same 3 games. As we talked about before we started recording, 2 of them were on the opposite side. So, we'll see how it plays out. Let's start off with the Texans plus 6.5 in the first half. You look at the Texans, the last 3 games since Stroud returned under center, they've had more success in the first half than the second half in all 3 games. Obviously, you're always gonna have the narrative of number one seeds, having some sort of, rust, if you want to call it that, after not playing the starters in week 17 or week 18, sorry. So, it's basically 2 weeks off for the starters for the Ravens. Texans have the momentum. Like I said, they've had more success statistically in the first half than the second half in the past few games. So I'm kind of the opposite. Like, I'm rooting for Houston, but I think the Ravens maybe, I'm more confident in the Texans covering the first half than the full game here. So I'm going Texans first half. I'm rooting for Houston. I hope that they can. It'd be a cool story, obviously, if they can, win outright, obviously. But I'm just going with them cover the first half. Lions, Bucks. I'm taking the over 49 in that one. I lean Lions covering as you have. If I'm on a side, but I'm more confident kind of in both offenses. These two teams met back in October, and then it was 20-6 Lions. But Mayfield's playing way better, now than he was, back earlier in the season. Lions, obviously the Bucs defense was good against the Eagles, but with the way the Eagles have been trending, the Lions offense has been way better, the past month or so. So I see this being like a 27-24, maybe 30-24, something like that type of game. Where I lean the Lions. I think they could win, maybe even like 31-24, where the Lions cover and it goes over, something like that. So I'm taking the over in that one. And then head to head here with the Bills, obviously it's part 3 or part 4 or something like that in the playoffs between the two teams. And the Chiefs have had the better end of the stick, I think, maybe every game, I think, so far in the playoffs, I think. So, now the Bills, obviously, like you said, the Bills are now at home. I think it's going to be, like you said, a tight game where it comes down to the end. I don't see like a blowout, obviously, or anything like that. But, the Bills have some injuries, but nothing to the point to where it scares me off of them here at home. Obviously Josh Allen's been waiting for this one, especially one in Buffalo. Not that weather's going to play a ginormous factor like it did in Kansas City last week when the Chiefs beat the Dolphins, where it was -30 or whatever it was feeling like. But I think that Allen finally gets his win over Mahomes in the playoffs at home, and the Bills prevail. I could see a 3-point win, something like that. But Bills prevail in a close one and finally get that playoff win over Mahomes and the Chiefs.
Okay. I feel like with the Texans, we're on like the same page, but just on different books. We're in different chapters. I think the Ravens, obviously, I think they do cover the first half, but I think the Texans are one of the scariest teams. And as you mentioned, we saw their game against the Browns last week, where their offense, pretty much controlled, and then obviously 2 pick sixes later, and then it was all Texans all game. But I just think the Texans will cover the full game, but I'm just taking the Ravens in the first half. I think we're on similar paths with the Lions and Bucks. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, but I think the Lions just cover at 6.5. I really the over at 49 as well. I think this is going to be a high scoring game. I know Baker Mayfield in that offense is going to be here, and then we know the Lions pass defense and the Lions pass defense. Oh boy. And I know Mike Evans is probably going to have at least maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns on the afternoon, I think. And then the Bills. You talk about this revenge spot for Josh Allen. I think this is also a revenge spot for Patrick Mahomes. And we talked about that game earlier this season where the Bills beat the Bills beat the Chiefs in the regular season to pretty much have this game be at Buffalo, just by the fact that, Kadarius Toney lined up off sides. And, we saw the post-game interview, and, we saw Allen and Mahomes hug, and Mahomes was saying that was the worst effing call I've ever seen in my life, and just I rate the whole entire game. So, opposite ends, but I wish you good luck on your Texans first half and your Bills -2.5. But obviously, we hope that the Lions and Bucks cover the Lions cover the spread, and obviously the Lions and Bucks go over that 49 total. Those are our weekend picks. You can find obviously all of these picks once again on our Twitter, AKP Sports Talk. We will have our full cards for tonight, Saturday's game, and Sunday's games posted around 5:30 each night before. So obviously tonight we'll have all of Saturday's slate, and then obviously Saturday night all of Sunday's slate. But that is going to do it for this episode of AKP Sports Talk. Thank you guys so much for tuning back in. We will be back on Monday for another episode. Yes, we will. Obviously, just with Justin's schedules, you gotta do what you can. But we will be back on Monday for another episode. We're gonna recap, just do a little recap of how we did this weekend for our best bets, and obviously, getting ready for a championship weekend potentially. Wow, it's already crazy. Our AFC and NFC championship already right around the corner. Oh, where did the season go? But that's going to do it for this episode of AKP Sports Talk. That's RM Korea. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys on Monday.